News 9. English news as it should be.
You're watching News 9. I'm Krishna Kumar. Our on point 2 is the battle for New York. Who will be the city's next mayor? Zohran Mamdani is the front runner so far, but he has seen nothing but opposition from US President Donald Trump right from the beginning, and he has doubled down on his criticism with just a day left for polling in the New York City mayor elections. Trump has doubled down on his criticism of Zohran Mamdani, reiterating that he thinks that the leader is a quote-unquote communist. In an interview with CBS 60 Minutes in the US, Trump was asked about Mamdani and his self-declared socialist identity. He corrected the interviewer, saying, and I quote, "Communist, not a socialist. He is far worse than a socialist," unquote. Trump was then asked about comparisons between him and Mamdani, and he said, and I quote, "Some people have compared him to a left-wing version of you, charismatic, breaking the old rules," said the interviewer. And responding to that question, Trump said, and I quote here again, "Well, I think I'm a much better looking person," unquote. Trump's remarks in this interview surfaced just a day ahead of the New York City mayoral election polling scheduled for the 4th of November. Now, Zohran Mamdani is the 33-year-old New York State Assembly member from Queens in New York, has focused his campaign on housing, controlling rising rents, inflation, and anti-corruption measures. He is leading the charge in the mayoral race and could become the first Muslim mayor in the US. His parents are Indian-American filmmaker Mira Nair and noted Indian-Ugandan post-colonial studies scholar, academician Mahmood Mamdani. Migrating to the US as a 7-year-old, he has a degree in Africana studies from college, and Mamdani's Muslim identity has been a significant part of his New York campaign, and he has gained considerable prominence in the recent months, particularly among young voters. Now, Trump, meanwhile, has been a staunch critic of Mamdani ever since he unexpectedly defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo in the mayoral primary race in June this year. Mamdani was earlier labeled 100% communist lunatic by Trump, who also commented on his looks. And he said, and I quote here again, "He looks terrible. His voice is grating. He's not very smart." Now, that's a part of Trump's Truth Social post. Later, Trump threatened to arrest Mamdani if, as mayor-elect, he tries to prevent ICE deportation or the immigration crackdown. Former governor of Andrew Cuomo, who's 67 years old, is positioning himself as a democratic alternative to Zohran Mamdani. He focuses on law and order, infrastructure development, and stable governance. Now, New York City, bear in mind, is America's largest city and a global financial hub. New York reflects voter preference and fault lines across the United States of America. New York's mayoral polls often lead to big policy changes within parties, stakeholders. The city hosts the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and apart from that, major banking institutions, and is home to 384,500 millionaires, or nearly 4 lakh millionaires. The city's economy generates approximately $1.8 trillion in GDP, and the 2025 election is using ranked choice voting. Bear in mind, in ranked choice voting, voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference. The system works through elimination rounds, and if no candidate achieves over 50% of first choice votes, the candidate with the lowest votes is eliminated every round, and voters' subsequent choices are redistributed. Now, let's understand what this means for the US and the world. We have Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal, former Indian diplomat, joining us. We have Professor Swaran Singh, School of International Studies at JNU, also joining us, alongside Pathikrit Paine, foreign affairs expert. Thank you, all of you, for taking time out to be with us. So let me begin with Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal. Here you have the largest city in the US, which is apparently set to get a mayor who is going to be at complete loggerheads with the president, who has already threatened to cut off funding to New York if Mamdani wins.
Thank you very much. I'm recalling my days in New York when I was actually accredited to the United Nations as a member of the mission to the United Nations. It's rather interesting. One or two things that I would like to point out. I don't want to get into the trap of really talking about the elections in a foreign country, even if it is just a mayoral election. But New York mayor is a very, very important position, having a deep influence on the national politics. is close to Washington, and every president is rather concerned about who comes into New York as the mayor. Even more important, as the governor of New York State, the New York City mayor is a very important position. Now, New York City, you said the richest, the rich city, 1.3 trillion or whatever the figure you quoted in terms of the total income. New York is also the residence for the, or not the residence really. The New York has also the largest homeless population of any city, maybe barring Los Angeles. So that shows you कि दिया तले अंधेरा होता है, where you have the prosperity, you also have the largest popularity. I've seen myself, the use of the food stamps is most in New York City. And therefore, when Mamdani, he capitalizes on that kind of an economic chasm among people, he is surely on the path to success, number one. Number two, most of the mayors of New York have been Democrats. There have been Republicans from time to time, but mostly it is Democrats. And therefore, the contests have been really at the level of the Democrats, and Mamdani has emerged the winner. And I don't think Mamdani can lose out the election now. This is my own personal reading. I'm not going to say howdy Mamdani, but I must say that I do have my preference for Mamdani, being an Indian and being the daughter of Mira Nair, being the son of Mira Nair, my favorite film director. I have my support for him, but even though I don't have a vote. I would, yes.
Okay, fair enough. I want to hold you to that point. Professor Zohran saying, talking about Indian, here you have an Indian of Indian origin is the best way of describing Zohran Mamdani. He has himself gone on many anti-Modi rants. In fact, a coalition of Indian, American and Hindu diaspora organizations across the US has strongly condemned Mamdani for what it described as Hindu-phobic actions and statements. In fact, Mamdani opposed the construction of Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. In 2020, Mamdani reportedly attended a rally where organizers used anti-Hindu slurs. And this is the person of Indian origin. And think of all the huge Indian community in New York and across the US who are watching this.
I agree with you. Some of his comments, particularly during his primaries to be nominated as a Democratic mayoral candidate, had made a splash in Indian media in terms of his views on Hinduism and some of such issues. But I think what makes him most interesting is that he's unusually young to be potentially the youngest mayor of New York ever. And therefore, what he's campaigning are very interesting issues. He's talking of New York politics being dominated by big money and small ideas and old politics of corruption and so on. And some of the elements do reflect parts of the current Indian politics, talking about giving free bus rides, for example, or controlling the renting in New York. And then in that sense, appealing to the relatively poorer sections of New York. So there are mixture of his being young, which makes him very noticeable. His being immigrant, which again is something that Trump has very different policy on. His being Muslim. And of course, the whole context of New York being a kind of a big apple and a hotspot of multiculturalism in that sense. So that makes him really unusually media savvy, media headlines drawing kind of a mayoral candidate. And what adds fuel to the fire, if I want to look at it that way, is unprecedented intervention of the federal government. The Justice Department recently dropping charges on the mayor, which is currently the mayor and soon to be former Eric Adams. And then, people are saying maybe there's a deal. He's exiting now the kind of contest. And of course, above all, you quoted President Trump, making personal aspersions, threatening to cut off funding. This has never happened in American politics, even if we say that New York mayoral contest is not limited to just local issues. It involves national issues, and as a mayor, he can influence national debates on many issues. So in many ways, the election tomorrow is going to be something of an unusual of a kind, And I believe that the trends as of now, despite the kind of margins are reducing because after exit of Eric Adams, and therefore I think the sidelining gradually by President himself of his own Republican candidate Curtis Silva, the margins between Mamdani and the follow-up candidate now that we talk of Silva is really reducing in that sense. So I think in some
Yeah.
ways it is interesting, but also New
In
York
fact,
is
we
known
have
to
some
be
data
low
on it,
voting
Professor Faran
rates.
Singh. According to the Atlas poll, which has surveyed around 1,500 people, Zohran Mamdani is leading with 40.6% support, followed by independent candidate Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, at 34%, and Republican Curtis Sliwa at 24.1%. Now, Mamdani is leading Cuomo by just 6.6 percentage and Sliwa by 16.5 percentage points. His thinnest edge since July, according to a New York Post report. Patikrit Pene, maybe we're talking a little too early. The final verdict is yet to arrive on whether Zohran Mamdani will indeed end up becoming the mayor of New York.
Well, it's Patikrit fine. Secondly, yes, frankly speaking, beyond a point, it doesn't matter much to us as to whether he becomes or somebody else becomes. But let's understand where the issue, the contention, and why President Trump talks about him. See, there is a deep divide in United States politics with the right-wing MAGA group on one side and the woke liberal socialist on the other side. Mamdani calls himself a communist. I mean, Trump claims that he's a communist. So there has been, a great friendship between the Islamist and the socialist for a long period of time. I consider this, if he wins the election, he can, and there would be a euphoria for 1 year, no doubt about that. I think that it is like the Sadiq Khan movement of London. There was a lot of euphoria when Sadiq Khan became the mayor, and then you saw the meltdown what is happening in London today. So you would see, I am very sure Mamdani is going to win because the typical woke socialist ecosystem knows how to catch the young, and the freebie culture and other all promises are going to make him attractive. He is young. He knows how to actually package it well. So the problem for United States is not Mamdani becoming the New York mayor. The problem is the deep divide that exists within the American society, with the woke liberal ecosystem on one side, probably as it is alleged, supported by the likes of George Soros, and you have the MAGA on the other side. I'm not saying that they are on the cusp of a civil war-like situation in the United States, but in every district you would see this divide, the division actually becoming far more profound than what it appears. A few days earlier, you had seen that hundreds of thousands of people have come out against Donald Trump in the United States. That kind of mobilization doesn't happen unless there is a strong force with considerable amount of money power trying to fight out against Donald Trump for whatever reason. So in the American politics, while it appears from outside that United States is a very united country, it is not. It has today probably the worst kind of fractured politics, and that shows in the statements even of President Trump. He's known for saying a lot of things. It's not that probably the first time that he's seeing such kind of statements he has made. But even for a mayoral election, if the President of the United States will have to comment, and the kind of comments that he makes shows that the hatred for the other side has been at its worst now. We don't see even that kind of thing probably in India. Back to you.
Right, Ambassador Suresh Goyal, for observers from across the world, all this does is that expose the fault lines within American society and American politics per se, isn't it? And that doesn't portend well for the United States of America and consequently the world.
Well, every election does bring out those kind of fault lines, and that's nothing new. It has happened in all the elections. What about the federal elections? It was the same kind of a thing. Therefore, I'm not really worried about the fault lines. But what I'm worried more about is whether the election of Mamdani is going to lead to any kind of further political fractures or fragmentation in the country. And if that happens, that's simply because India has a significant relationship with the USA, very important relationship, and everything else becomes cattle fodder into the relationship, particularly Mamdani being of the Indian origin. So I'm worried about that part really. So we need to wait and see how it turns out. But if Trump really actually goes on to use all that he has at his command to get Mamdani out, let us see. I'm not at all happy about that, to say the least.
Okay, Professor Swaran Singh, we will know the answer in about 24 to 48 hours from now when the elections are done and dusted, and that's when we will be having a different set of questions to ask. If assuming that Zohran Mamdani wins, we have a certain number of questions to ask, and if Zohran Mamdani doesn't win, and then the question is how did it happen that a man who's been the front runner in the entire build up to the election till the last day ends up losing the election on the last day, and then there'll be fingers pointed, isn't it?
I think two things. One, because New York, as all of us are saying, is a democratic state, and New York mayors have often been democratic. And right now, there is a certain amount of discomfiture with President Trump and the way he runs his affairs, and the way he's indulging with Mamdani and the mayoral elections in New York, I think would ensure that Mamdani will win. What we are saying is that the margins, which were kind of unusually impressive in the beginning, have shrunk over a period of time. Between Mamdani and Cuomo, now the margins could be relatively less, but I think there is still likelihood of Mamdani becoming the next mayor. If President Trump follows up with, deploying National Guards in New York, or cutting all the funding, or using other departments that he has to unleash some kind of anti-Mamdani tirade, that will only be disengaging, or engaging him in certain unusual, unproductive way of things that can happen. But I think this also is important to underline that Mamdani's comments that have rattled some of people in India may not continue. See, during elections, candidates say all kinds of things to, ensure that they make a splash, they get media coverage, they become more attractive, and then Mamdani
election bazi. It's all election bazi by Mamdani. Quick last comment from Pathikrit. The question here is that Trump has done enough. He's criticized, doubly criticized, threatened to cut off funding. Do you think that can eventually change the outcome of the elections?
Well, that has been the culture of American politics. The Democrats also have not left any stone unturned to undermine Trump. And I don't think that itself can prevent Mamdani if he has a chance to become the mayor. But my last comment is that I don't think most Indians care to hoot that Mamdani is of an Indian origin. We are not enthusiastic. He is an American. That's it. He is an American fighting an American election, and that's where he is not an extension of India's foreign policy. So Mamdani being of Indian origin, Trump, if he is upset with Mamdani, will impact India. I don't think that is probably a fair statement or an understanding of the issue, because these are completely two different things. He is an American citizen. He has the right to fight the election. If he wins, it is American citizens voting for him. But whether the road ahead will be easy, well, I don't think so. Neither for Trump or for this man. Back to you.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. Pathikrit Pain, foreign affairs expert, thank you for taking time out to be with us, and Professor Swaran Singh, School of International Studies, JNU, and Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal as well. And with that, we've come to the end of On Point 2. Time now for a short breather, but after the break, we will be back with On Point 3 on Indian women in blue coming of age with that historic World Cup triumph. That's coming up after a short break. Keep it with News9.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
भारत सरकार ने सभी देशवासियों के हित में हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस से जीएसटी पूरी तरह से हटाकर 0 कर दिया है। इससे हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस काफी सस्ता हो गया है। पॉलिसी बाजार पर अब 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू। policybazaar.com।
Moments come alive, even in everyday life, where journeys grow bigger. So, you take everyone along. See whatever life shows. And every day comes alive inside the airports. What do you you say, Kara?
I think Mahi to throw in aircraft है हर moment का boss.
Wow. Say that again.
यही मौका है बिजनेस को बढ़ाने का, पर पैसा।
अपनी सुपर पावर यूज करने का टाइम आ गया है।
आप टेंशन मत लीजिए, IIFL फाइनेंस से झटपट गोल्ड लोन लीजिए और बिजनेस आगे बढ़ाइए।
आपके जैसे सुपर हीरोज ऐसी छोटी मोटी प्रॉब्लम से थोड़ी ना रुकते हैं, इसीलिए लाइफ जब भी आगे बढ़ने का मौका दे तो अपनी सुपर पावर, अपना गोल्ड यूज करिए और IIFL फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए।
IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात।
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
You are watching News9. This is On Point, and on Point 3 we have the history being scripted by the Indian women's cricket team with their World Cup triumph. Has Indian women's cricket finally reached the space that it deserves? The Indian women's cricket team scripted history on the 2nd of November, clinching their maiden World Cup title. Captain Harmanpreet Kaur lifted the trophy, not just sparking victory on the field, but spending the hearts of over 1.5 billion Indians soaring. During a public event, Prime Minister Modi congratulated the team, saying that they had scripted history by bringing home the nation's first ever World Cup title, a triumph that reflected their growing confidence and strength.
साथियों, नारी सशक्तिकरण की इस प्रेरक भूमि से मैं आज पूरे देश को महिला क्रिकेट विश्व कप की विजय पर बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। कल मुंबई में भारत की बेटियों ने इतिहास रच दिया है। भारत ने पहली बार महिला क्रिकेट विश्व कप जीता है। पूरे 25 साल बाद दुनिया को नया विश्व विजेता मिला है और ये गौरव भारत की बेटियों ने पूरे देश को दिया है।
Now, let's take a look at the inspiring journey and achievements of India's Sheroes in blue. Deepti Sharma was announced as the player of the tournament. The spinner, all-rounder and tactical linchpin finished as the highest wicket taker with 22 wickets. She scored 58 runs as well and took 5 wickets for 39 runs in the finals against South Africa, and contributed 46 runs with 4 wickets in the semi-finals as well against Australia. Known for her calmness and consistency, Deepti hails from a family of educators. Her mother Sushila is a retired school principal, while her father Bhagwan Sharma worked with the railways. Shefali Verma, player of the match in the finals. She debuted at the age of just 15. Hailing from Rohtak, Haryana, she scored a phenomenal 87 runs in the finals against South Africa. Shefali is the daughter of Sanjeev, a jeweler, and Parveen, a homemaker. Harmanpreet Kaur, the captain from Moga in Punjab, is the backbone of India's batting lineup. She led the team to its maiden World Cup title, scoring 89 runs in the semi-finals against Australia. Her father, Harmandir Singh, was a basketball player, and her mother, Satvinder, is a homemaker. Moving on, Smriti Mandhana, India's vice-captain, who scored a magnificent century against New Zealand in the World Cup. With experience of over a decade, she is only the second Indian woman to score 1,000 one-day runs against Australia. Jemima Rodriguez, who hails from Mumbai, started with street cricket and was a former under-17 hockey player. She scored an unbeaten 127 in that historic semi-final against Australia. Her parents are Lavita, a school teacher, and Ivan, a coach. Harleen Deol from Chandigarh, known for her stylish stroke play, scored some crucial runs against Pakistan and Sri Lanka in India's journey to the World Cup finals. Pratika Rawal hails from Delhi, a former basketball gold medalist. She hit a match-winning century against New Zealand in the World Cup. Amanjot Kaur from Chandigarh, a multi-sport athlete. She debuted in the year 2023 only and made a mark as a crisis specialist, scoring 57 vital runs against Sri Lanka. Richa Ghosh from Siliguri in West Bengal, with a strike rate of over 103, scored 34 runs in the finals and 33 in the semi-finals, and is a sharp wicket-keeper batsman. Renuka Singh from Himachal Pradesh impressed with her in-swingers and calm pace control in the semi-finals and the finals.